The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way media podcast.
Star Wars, if they should bar wars, please let these Star Wars stay.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Cambridge and Washawn, a podcast by two weird guys about the weird things that they like. And I think we have kind of a theme episode today, something that you broached briefly on the first episode. And I went back and listened to a lot of that one, and we kind of packed those things with a lot of stuff and didn't talk a lot about the things, and we've evolved into maybe talking longer about one thing. I don't know if people enjoy that more or not.
I think it's better that we're able to dig in deeper and spend more quality time with the obsessions we've chosen to talk about in each episode.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's hard to keep it brief sometimes about some of this stuff. So.
And sometimes one episode becomes 3 episodes.
How so?
Rock Balls and Star Wars.
Rock Balls. Speaking of, no.
Oh, man.
Do you have any corrections or anything from last time?
No, I think it's good. How about you?
Well, I watched a video shortly after, I think it was either edited or out already, and I watched a Plaid Stallions video on YouTube regarding one of the old Micronaut playsets, and it reminded me of a couple things that I didn't get to on that episode. And one of the things was the set that he talked about was actually the set that's recreated in that box I got of 3 figures. It's just cardboard, but it is supposed to replicate that set, which of course the name I can't even remember now. He mentioned that they kind of went against the grain as far as the packaging goes, and I had meant to bring up the packaging because that was one of the big draws of these toys, is seeing the displays in, I remember walking into the Toys R Us when it used to be in Fashion Fair and seeing that wall of black carded little figures with the, I guess it's kind of a double exposure technique where the actions all look like they're in motion. That was very appealing. And the thing that he noted was that they used black as their main color, and that was sort of a no-no for toy packaging. Bright colors, you're supposed to go with, right? That sort of goes along with what we're talking about today because the carding is very similar on the original, actually to this day, Star Wars figures. So that black, mostly black card is actually very striking. And then I had mentioned the artist, Ken Kelly, who did the artwork for this new package from Hasbro of that Micronauts Classic Collection. I had inserted that little note that he had done the original packaging, and then I was like, wait a minute, but those were all photos. All the Micronauts stuff was photos of the toys, which is where it differs from Star Wars. I was like, was that even correct? I don't know. So that may have been incorrect that he did the original packaging. That's what Wikipedia says. And I kind of remember having probably read that before. So I just went with what they had in there. Could be wrong. I don't know. But there were not illustrations on the old Micronauts packaging. His story about the connection between the Microman figures from Japan and Micronauts with Mego was that Microman actually actively pursued licenses and contacted Marty Abrams, which is a little bit different than all the other stories I heard and what I purported on that episode. Who knows what the full story is. That's all I wanted to get to.
Thinking about it, I think I have something to add to mine too. I had noticed this in my brief research or traipsing down the information highway of Ed Wood's stuff. I had noticed a listing in IMDb for a 2020 made-for-TV movie called Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I'm assuming is a remake or a re-envisioning of it. I've not been able to find anything on there. So if anybody listening has any information about this supposed 2020 made-for-TV remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space, please send us a message on the Cambridge and Wishon Instagram page. That would be awesome.
Was it a remake or was it one of those pandemic readings?
Well,
where everybody got together and read a script.
That kind of makes sense, but it actually is listed on IMDb as a TV movie. So I don't know what that means. There are no people associated with it except for Scott Nielsen. And he's listed as being all characters. So maybe it was a reading, but it says TV movie. I would love to see somebody attempt to remake Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I want to say it was one of those, like, they did with The Princess Bride and all these other things to keep themselves busy.
Right. That would be interesting, too. Imagine a reading of that. I mean, it's so slow moving. It would be interesting if people started to dig into some of that material. A remake of Bride of the Monster, a remake of Glenn or Glenda, a remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space. All of those would be very interesting to me, especially if it was taken seriously. I hope folks out there that have the creative juices flowing and like Ed Wood are thinking about stuff like that.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. Inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Alrighty, well, we're hitting the Star Wars, as I like to call them, today, and this is a repeat for you, and I'm finally getting to my part of this story, and mine's a two-parter, but the second part is more my location. I think your location relates to yours as well. So why don't you get us started with your part of this Star Wars epic journey?
You mentioned me piggybacking off of something that I started talking about in my last Weekly Weirdo. I'm really interested in exploring this a little bit further because I touched on it briefly, but I didn't really get to talk about the severity, I guess is the right word, of the impact of these particular characters. Going back to where we started with this, with the Greedo action figure, I was really excited about and interested in the strange characters in the background of the Star Wars movies, beginning with the Cantina, but really for me, because of my age and my experience with the Star Wars franchise, it really began in heavily with The Empire Strikes Back. That's the movie I got to see in the theaters. I didn't get to see the first one in the theaters. After The Empire Strikes Back came out, we were able to get copies of the first and the second movies at some point on VHS. I think they were recorded off of the television when they first aired on TV or something. I rewatched those obsessively. The Cantina scene, obviously, was impressive to me from the first film. But there's that one sequence in The Empire Strikes Back where they've gathered the bounty hunters in that room. They hardly say anything. I don't know, would you say it's like a minute-long scene or 2-minute-long scene? It's very brief.
Yeah.
There will be a substantial reward for the one who finds the Millennium Falcon. You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegration.
They're there and then they're gone, and the action figures came out, right? Boba Fett was already available, but suddenly you had the two weird insect guys, Forlom and Zuckuss, and IG-88, which had lasting impact on me, and Dengar and Bosk. In thinking about it, in retrospect, I can pretty much narrow down the beginnings of my obsession with toy collecting to those particular characters. Those are my first experiences toy hunting, looking for those action figures on the shelves, specifically making sure that I could find a way to get Boba Fett, which was very difficult. He was the one that everyone seemed to be hunting for back in the day, but also looking out for Forlom and Zuckuss was difficult too. And I've heard and read that people had the experience of getting a Forlom, but it had a Zuckuss in the package and vice versa. I never had that experience that I know of. I could have because I opened those things up. I didn't pay attention to the packaging except for what was on the back of the cards to see who else was out there. Really, those characters had such a lasting impact on me. And I think it's because of the way they looked. Hammerhead was another figure that was very intriguing to me. It was all about the look. It was not really about who they were or the story behind the characters, because those didn't exist. And it was more about the look of these characters paired with the mystery of not knowing who they were was exciting to me too. It was always less interesting for me to play with Luke Skywalker and Han Solo because I knew about them. They were transparent. Their characters, Han Solo was a bit of a mystery, but they had backgrounds. We knew who they were. We knew what they were all about. With the bounty hunters and with those Cantina characters, it was all a mystery. Plus, there was something about the concept of bounty hunting that really intrigued me. There are movies from the 80s that accessed a similar feeling for me. Mad Max and the Road Warrior, for example, got me really excited about these people in pursuit of a thing. What are they really after? Well, in those movies, they're after gasoline, essentially, and just surviving. There's a character that has a kind of motivation. Mad Max's motivation in the first movie is revenge, essentially. But in the second movie, Road Warrior, it's all about survival. But I was intrigued by those weird baddies that were just all about pillaging and finding gasoline. And something about that kind of pursuit is really intriguing to me. What is the real motivation besides money for these bounty hunters? Really nothing. We didn't need backstories. For me, I didn't need backstories. I didn't need to know why they needed that
now you're
cash.
getting them.
Yeah, now we're getting them. That's a whole other deal. Actually, you know what? I can talk about that a little bit because that sort of like stems from all this. Boba Fett was interesting to me, but the truth is IG-88 and Forlom and Zuckuss were much more interesting to me. There was something about the insectoid costumes of Forlom and Zuckuss, that one being a droid and one being kind of organic insects. What the heck is going on there? I couldn't understand what was going on. I kind of understood that one was a droid, but the other one was like alien creature, but with sort of biomechanical features and really cool. But IG-88, this character that's just standing there, barely turning its head, something about that character looked familiar and menacing to me at the same time. What makes the Star Wars universe particularly exciting to me is that it feels lived in. It's not new and shiny. It doesn't feel like 2001 A Space Odyssey interiors. It feels like a universe that has actually existed for quite a while. And the materials used to create IG-88, I believe, is taken from an engine parts for the head shape. That kind of reusing of old parts and referencing the natural world, like the insect creature, Forlom and Zuckuss, and then Bosk looking like a lizard and Dengar looking like he's covered in wound dressing. Everything is familiar, but new and different. And this mashup of what feels like, and this is, speaking to my love for this stuff, it feels like found materials just thrown on these characters.
That's how they did a lot of it.
Exactly. And and George Lucas, that's what works, my friend. Those characters forever to me will be symbolic of my first real interest in toy versions of these characters. I loved the Universal monsters as a kid, but I was more interested in watching the movies or looking at pictures and books than I was, going out and trying to hunt for the Remco figures or whatever. I was not thinking about that. But when I saw those bounty hunters, I knew that I wanted to play with them and I wanted to take them outside. We're going to get to the outside in a little bit. I wanted to take them outside and I wanted to create scenarios where they could exist further, where their universe could be extended in my hands with my imagination. And that's essentially why I have a long-standing relationship with toys as important objects. I could pretty much boil it down to it's because of those characters.
Did you have all the Kenner characters of those bounty hunters?
I did. Well, I don't think I had Dengar. I just have these vague memories of kind of having Dengar around. I definitely had IG-88. I definitely had Forlom and Zuckuss. I remember those three characters specifically. And I definitely had Boba Fett. A vague feeling like I had Dengar and Bosk. And it could have just been that my older stepbrothers had them or something. But I definitely had my own Forlom and Zuckuss, and I definitely had my own Boba Fett and IG-88. I played with those figures a lot. I mean, those figures were running around with Masters of the Universe characters. They were in my possession and in my play, even if I was into something else. So they were always around. IG-88 especially was my favorite of all of them. We mentioned it in the show, but I started a band with a friend and we decided to name ourselves IG-88 because we had a very close relationship to that character. That kind of impact is really interesting to me. I don't know if other people have had the joy of being able to look back and identify pinpoint the exact moment or the exact character or series of characters that urged them to invest their life into an obscure interest. I've gotten rid of a lot of my Black Series characters, but I can't let go of the Black Series bounty hunters. The first figures that I repurchased in my vintage collection were the bounty hunters, and it all begins there.
You said you saw it in the theater, so weren't you only like 3 years old?
Yeah. My dad was really interested in movies, and he is still, but I mean, the first movie he took me to was King Kong, 1976. I was less than 1 year old.
Okay, so when were you born?
1976.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking 77 for some reason.
No, I was born in 76.
Okay, so you were a little bit older then.
I was, yeah. I could have gone to see Star Wars, but
yeah,
What I did see, though, in the theater was King Kong for some reason. I don't know why he took me to that. I would have been an infant. And
One of those.
yeah, one of those. I know. Can you imagine? He doesn't recall that experience as being me crying. Maybe I was actually watching. That would actually make sense to me because I have a side obsession with gorillas. We'll get into King Kong later on, I guess. I spent a lot of time going to movies with him. So when Empire Strikes Back came out, we were definitely at the movie theater. I mean, we saw Jaws, we saw E.T., we saw Empire Strikes Back, we saw whatever was coming out, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Indiana Jones movies. And I always look forward to that with my dad. It was always one of the things that side of my family would do. I should ask him if he likes to talk about the King Kong experience because it's kind of like a triumph for him, I think, that he took me to see my first movie when I was less than 1 year old. But I should ask him about the 1977 going to see Star Wars. I wonder if he had a Star Wars t-shirt. I remember that. So he was interested. Maybe we went. But I don't remember either of those movies, so seeing them in the theater.
I'm surprised you remember Empire Strikes Back, actually, because I can't think of a movie that I saw at 4 years old that I specifically remember seeing.
I think I just remember it because I was told. We all went. That's what I was told. So I can tell you, when I saw Empire Strikes Back on TV or on the video recording of it or whatever we did, I do have this very distinct recollection of the Hoth scenes being very familiar to me. That could be because of what I'm going to talk about in the second half of this. But the Hoth scenes, I remember the moment of seeing those on the small screen, feeling like I had been there before. Take that as you will. I don't know what that means. Those bounty hunters, I know you appreciate them too, but those bounty hunters really had an intense impact on me as a kid and still do so today. They're the coolest. And every time I rewatch The Empire Strikes Back, I rewind that scene and watch it like 3 times. It does something special to me. I feel very lucky to have had that experience. Not a lot of young Star Wars fans understand that. I think if you grew up with the prequels, for example, I think that there are probably significant characters that have an impact on younger audiences maybe, but I can't imagine a group of characters being as or more interesting than the bounty hunters.
No, Mr. Stay. Mr. called Jar Jar Binks. Mr. Your humble servant.
That won't be necessary.
Oh, but it is.
Those kids love that Jar Jar Binks, baby.
Thank goodness my wife is around because when that Black Series version of Jar Jar Binks came out and I saw it at Target, I was so tempted just to get it for shits and giggles, just to have the novelty of owning a Jar Jar Binks. And she was like, just think, do you really like that character? I'm like, no, I don't. I despise that character. Well, then why would you spend, I think it was like $27, I think.
Yeah.
It was an insane price for that. And she's right. But, sometimes we gotta embrace or face the things we fear the most.
Yeah, we've been going through the movies, actually partly because of this, and one day Cleo and Carlita were both doing their own thing, and I was like, I'll just throw on Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, I'm going to be using old school terms through this, so A New Hope is always just Star Wars to me.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to know character names. They're going to be what they were in the toy version, like Walrus Man.
Yes.
Give a shit what his name is.
Exactly.
I can give a shit what his name is.
Hammerhead.
Yeah, I don't know. I ask Cleo sometimes, like, what kind of creature are these? Okay, fine.
That's cool that she knows.
Yeah, Greedo was the only one that really had a name in the first movie. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. So I threw it on, and they're like, oh, are you watching Star Wars? And so they kind of finished it with me, and then I think I did the same thing with Empire, either that same night or the next day. And so we've been going through them. And with Empire, I kept thinking as we were watching it, this is so Lynchian. There's so many weird things in this one. And I know that he was approached to direct one of them, but it wasn't Empire, which
it was Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I had to remind myself because I'm like, the tank that they put Luke in, that whole operations scene, the bounty hunters, just the way they're positioned and don't talk in there
Oh, yeah.
reminds me of scenes in Blue Velvet for some reason. And Dengar, particularly,
He is
with
straight out of a David Lynch movie.
wrappings.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is just so weird. It has these really weird touches throughout and kind of dark.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why a lot of people didn't like it. But yeah, I was like, no, this isn't the one he was going to direct, but it sure feels like it could have been.
Oh, that dream sequence on...
Yeah, the dream sequence. Yes, exactly.
On what was that? Yoda's planet?
Dagobah. Or I don't know what
Dagobah.
planet it is, but it's in the Dagobah system.
The Dagobah system, yeah. That dream sequence alone is so David Lynch. And I can see why Lucas would have been interested in having him for Return of the Jedi. Boy, I would have liked to have seen that movie.
Yeah, look that up on YouTube because it's hysterical. His discussion of his meeting with Lucas and them.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Ewoks. And his massive headache that he gets that was his sign to say, no thanks.
Yep. Oh, God, I love that.
I was asked by George to come up to see him and talk to him about directing, which would be the third Star Wars. And I had next door to zero interest. But I always admired George. You know, George is a guy that does what he loves, and I do what I love. The difference is what George loves makes hundreds of billions of dollars.
And instead he goes and makes Dune.
Uh-huh. Which I know that some people have mixed feelings, and I know that David Lynch regrets Dune.
That's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic, but I love that movie. It is special to me.
For he is the Kwisatz Haderach.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
So what do you got in store for us?
I'm old enough to have seen the original Star Wars in the theater, and I did. And you mentioned Festival Cinemas last episode, and I saw this at Regency Cinema. They're part of the same, or were a part of the same conglomeration of cinemas, Regency Cinemas. So there was Festival, there was Fig Garden, and there was Regency. And Regency was where we went as kids to most movies, because it was, I guess, closest to where I lived, or easier to get to. I mean, it wasn't that close, like 5, almost 6 miles away on Willow and Barstow. Like Festival, I think it's a car lot now.
It's behind a car lot. I can't tell what they store there or what
you can see it from the 168 when you drive on it. You can see the building.
I saw Ice Pirates there.
I don't really remember all that much about that initial, like, I don't know who I saw. I know I saw it there. I don't know if it was just like me and my sister or if it was a group of kids. The stuff that stuck out for me in the first movie were much the same as you. Cantina. The Jawas, Sandcrawler scene. That's kind of it. Like, the story and all that didn't really register all that much. It was more about the creatures. There wasn't really, I guess it might be hard for people to understand this now, but it wasn't like you left the theater and thought, oh boy, I wish I could have toys of these. It wasn't a thing.
That wasn't part of our consciousness when the first movie came out.
There were, obviously, Mego had major licenses, but most of their stuff were existing properties.
Yeah.
DC and Marvel, obviously, and they had both been around for decades.
Yep.
Before anybody was making toys of them or action figures. Planet of the Apes, Star Trek. This is stuff that was past, came and went, but, we're successful for them, obviously. But there wasn't this thought of, oh, a new movie came out, I want toys for this. A new TV show comes out, I want toys of this. It wasn't like it is today. So I didn't leave the theater going, oh, I need a Greedo, I need a this, I need a that. I have no recollection of the whole early bird package, the figures coming out, seeing them, I'm sure at some point when they came out, not more than a year, but close to a year after the movie came out, probably started seeing them. Of that first 12, so they did the early bird package, which you could buy kind of like a promissory note. I am going to get these when they're made, and there were 4, and I think it was Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, and R2-D2.
Star Wars figures. R2-D2. Chewbacca, Luke, and Princess Leia. They're the Star Wars Early Bird set of figures. These 4 action figures are not yet available, but this Star Wars Early Bird certificate package is in stores, with this colorful Star Wars picture display stand and certificate to send in to get a set of 4 figures by mail. They'll be sent to you at home between February 1st and June 1st. The Star Wars Early Bird certificate package, new from Kenner.
People that did that paid $8 or whatever, got those figures sent to them in this package.
I love that.
And then those 4 figures plus 8 more were produced as the first 12. For Star Wars collectors, 12 back cards are very sought after, and I had 8 of those first 12, and I most likely got them for Christmas of 1978.
Mm-hmm.
So I had Obi-Wan, C-3PO, R2-D2, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Stormtrooper, Sand People, and a Jawa.
Was it Big Head Han?
Yeah, I have balloon head Han.
David Lynch Han is what we call him now.
And as far as likenesses and stuff, the movie was gone. I mean, it probably played for quite a while. Greedo or whatever not being screen accurate, I probably wouldn't even have remembered.
The head sculpt for Greedo, the head sculpt for Hammerhead are more screen accurate than Chewbacca, for example. There's a distinct level of detail on Greedo's head sculpt and Hammerhead's head sculpts that are more screen accurate, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, well, that second wave, which I'll get to in a second, is I think they had a little more time to fine-tune the details.
Right.
But that first 12, and there's a great documentary. I think you and I might have watched it once during our movie days, called Plastic Galaxy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
and
we watched
it's all
that.
about, I hadn't watched it in a while, but I was thinking it was more about kind of the lead up to the figures and less about the collectors. It's not, but there is the history of how these things got made. And as mentioned on the last episode, they went around in 76 to shop the toys around. And because this wasn't really a thing back then, most companies were like, this movie's going to come and go. There's nothing here that's going to hold people's attention for years and years or whatever. And, it's just some goofy sci-fi movie. And most people passed on it. Kenner signed their contract with Lucasfilm or with 20th Century Fox or whoever they were dealing with at the time. April of 77, a month before the movie comes out, and there is no way they're going to have toys for that year. That's why they did the early bird thing, blah, blah, blah. So the next 8 figures came out the same year in 78, but a little while later, contained mostly Cantina creatures. And I had Greedo and Snaggletooth. And that's it from that next 8. And those could have all been Christmas 78, most likely. Seems like a lot to me, but yeah, it's possible. Because I was still getting, Migos and other things like that. As I mentioned, they were able to watch the film now and get maybe a little more detail. But as we all know, when you watch those movies, you don't really see anything below the waist for most of these. Like Walrus
That's right.
Man is a good example, and how his head sculpt and outfit are just not even close to what's on screen. And this is part of that second wave where, as you mentioned, the Greedo head sculpt is actually really good.
Yeah.
But he's in the movie more. Kenner had very few things to go off of for that original 12. If you see some of the early promotional material where they used basically Fisher-Price adventure people, kit bashed those for like Han and some of the other ones, and used a sock for the Jawa's cape, and that's pretty funny. And that's all in that documentary. I don't have a lot of strong memories of playing with my Star Wars figures. I don't know really why that is. I mean, I was the right age. I was 8 when Star Wars came out. I was 11 when Empire came out, which we'll get to in a little bit. To me, that's prime action figure time.
Yeah.
When I look at these, and as I've mentioned in the past, these are really the only action figures that survived childhood. It's not because they were my most treasured items. It's because they fit in this little airplane bag that my grandma gave me. Little vinyl airplane bag they used to give you on flights. They all fit in it and were easy to take with me later on in life when I moved, or to just store in my closet when I was a kid. They kind of survived by default. Migos were kind of big. I think most of my Migos broke. Of course, most of them got donated, but when I look at them, they're all in really good shape. One of the Jawa, I have 2 Jawa. I ended up getting 2 Jawas because they were favorites from the first movie.
Yeah.
And are still favorites. We watched Rogue One last night, and I was like, are there any Jawas in this? Or Greedos? I call whatever Greedo is Greedos. And there aren't, which is upsetting because they're on Tatooine. So anyway, and my Bespin Luke, his head was repaired at some point, which I think was just a matter of they had a really small peg. Watching Toy Polloi, again, to mention him, and seeing a lot of the figures that he restores and what horrible shape they're in, I'm like, man, mine are like pristine. Most of them have little paint rubs on their hands, so I know that they were played with. They just weren't the things that I remember taking on adventures or going in the backyard and playing in the dirt. It's a really weird thing to me where I still have them, but I think I would trade them all for childhood Migos. Who knows, though? So I had 10 figures of that first year, 1978. I think I had, this is where my memory kind of escapes me, I had a land speeder, and I don't remember if I think I had the Sonic controlled land speeder. Thought I had the regular one, which I have bought one since then. Once Cleo started getting into Star Wars, I found one cheap on eBay. They're fun little vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
But then I get confused. I'm like, because I see the ads, the old ads for the Sonic controlled one, and it came with a little R2-D2 clicker. And I'm like, oh, I remember having that clicker, so I must have had that. But then I also think that I had the R2-D2 remote control, 8 or so inches tall.
Yeah, the one that pops up in Stranger Things.
That is when I discovered that I don't like remote controlled vehicles and have never had any. I think I had a car at one point. I can't do it. I don't know. Yeah. And I have decent eye-hand coordination, but for some reason, RC stuff just is like beyond me. Same with video games. I think it's the same concept as video games. I don't know when we started hearing the buzz about Empire when I was a kid. At some point, you start getting this thing like, oh, there's going to be more of these. It's a trilogy. The next one is going to be this, and Luke is going to train with Jedi Master Yoda. And it's like, Yoda, that sounds intriguing. What's this? And I don't know if images came out before the movie or not, or if it was a surprise when I went to see it that it was basically a Muppet.
It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up right. It's time to raise the curtain on the Muppet Show tonight.
But all I know is that's all I cared about as far as Empire Strikes Back was concerned.
That's awesome.
Yoda. Didn't care about anything else. Didn't care if there were Greedos in it. Didn't care if there were Jawas in it. Didn't care about the bounty hunters when I saw them. Nothing mattered to me other than Yoda. I love those scenes in the Dagobah system, but there aren't enough of them, and he's not on screen long enough. And that has always bothered me. Even when we watched it last week or so, I was like, there's just not enough Yoda.
I think that they were really aiming to have that character be mysterious. Part of me feels like if they put Yoda on the screen more frequently or had more scenes where you're seeing more of Yoda, that the Muppet aspect would have been more prevalent or present. I personally love that Yoda's so brief in those sequences. I was obsessed with him too, not to the same extent that you were, but I really enjoyed that he seemed unpredictable and super creepy. And if there was more of that, then he may have ended up being more of a Muppet, which, with Frank Oz's voice and everything, it could potentially change our relationship to him.
When he starts talking, I was like, oh my God, it's Miss Piggy.
Miss Piggy.
I remember thinking that in the theater.
Yeah. It's Grover.
I don't know, though, I know that I've looked this up in the past to kind of get my timeline straightened out and looking at like Starlog, because I know there's a famous cover of Starlog and of People magazine that use basically the same image of Yoda.
Yep.
And I'm like, did they come out before? I want to say they came out before, but I couldn't verify that. I don't think that they did. I think they were very protective of that. But in my head, I feel like I knew at least what he looked like when I went to go see the movie. I love Empire Strikes Back. Loved it then. Love it now, even though it doesn't have Jawas and Greedos in it.
One thing
because of Yoda.
One thing that can be said about Empire Strikes Back, of all the films that have been altered by Lucas since, I feel like that has the most non-obtrusive changes.
I said that to Cleo when we were watching. I was like, this one's the least messed around with. There wasn't much to mess with in that.
Yeah, I think all they really did was add windows to Cloud City. I think that's pretty much it.
I think there's some long shots of Cloud City that are all CGI.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
That I don't care about. I don't need to see sand troopers falling off of dewbacks.
Oh my God, don't get me started.
We can talk about that stuff at the end of this if you want.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
You mentioned Boba Fett. I think he was the first mail-away figure. So you had the 12 back cards, then you had 8 new figures, so you had 20 back cards, and then you had mail-away for Boba Fett, and then he ended up on a card, so there was a 21 back card, and then Empire comes out. And I want to say, did I write it down? Yeah, so I think there were initially 9 new figures for Empire, so there was a 30 back card.
Mark corrects this egregious card back gaffe later in the episode.
Of those figures, I had Luke in his Bespin outfit.
Oh yeah.
So I finally got a Luke. I didn't have Luke, Leia, or Darth Vader from the initial wave. And I've never had them.
The second best Luke, in my opinion.
And then I had a Snowtrooper, or Imperial Stormtrooper, I think is the correct term, and Lando. That was it for a while, because, and this is where I always get my memory is wrong, that came out summer of 80, so I was 11, and all I wanted was Yoda.
Hey, get out of there! Hey, you could have broken this. Don't do that.
I didn't care about any of the other figures. It's an odd assortment. Bespin Luke, a Snowtrooper, and Lando. I don't think I asked for those. I think my mom just got them because they were new Star Wars. I don't know. Maybe I specifically asked for them or went and got them myself. But all I cared about was Yoda. So I always think that I spent that summer after the movie came out hunting for Yoda, but I didn't. So that'll be the second part of my little tale, which includes my place for this time. That's it for the first part.
I gotta tell you, I loved Yoda too. It took me the moment of holding someone else's Yoda in my fingers to realize what an immensely cool figure that was. So the miniaturization of everything, his cute little smiling face, his utility belt.
Don't talk about it too much, dude. That's
just
the next part of my story, man.
Like, he's such a cool looking little figure. I'm just going to stop with this, though. When they re-released the retro collection, quote unquote, retro collection Star Wars figure version of Yoda, I rushed out to get that little guy. That's one of the figures I never had as a kid.
Luke Skywalker handles his saber well, Ben Kenobi. You should know, Yoda. Yes, I've been the Jedi Master for 800 years.
Yoda and other action figures each sold separately.
Beep, 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 beep. It's okay, R2-D2. I've got my laser pistol.
Hold it, Luke. They're afraid of your snake, Yoda. You have nothing to fear. The Force is all around us.
Yoda and other action figures each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection. From Kenner.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster. You know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
On to the second part of your story, which includes a location.
I decided to go super personal on this location, mainly because of its association with Star Wars action figures and my childhood. I've talked a lot about my dad taking me to the movies and stuff like that, so a little context here. My parents separated when I was less than 1 year old, and not too long after that, my mom remarried. Well, my dad remarried and my mom remarried. My mom she had primary custody of me, and we lived up in the mountains with, and my stepfather was a genuine certified mountain man. Like, he was all about that. In fact, it was very interesting. John Wayne he was like obsessed with John Wayne, and it was very present in our household, the sort of Hollywood version of cowboy. The first house that they got together was a mobile home up in the mountains on, I think, was about 4 acres of land, kind of in this valley. Looked and felt like a ranch from a movie. And we planted Christmas trees. I don't know so much if they exist anymore, but back then up there in the mountains, there were there were several independently owned little Christmas tree farms where the trees would be grown every year. People would come through and pick out their tree, and my stepdad chop it down for them, and they'd take it home. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas was always an exciting time up there. To make a long story short, we lived on a Christmas tree farm. It would snow up there sometimes, and that's probably part of the reason why Hoth seemed familiar, because I was out there with my action figures amongst the little Christmas trees, or there we had this pile of granite rocks in the back, and we had a creek, and I was out there by myself pretty much every day after school if I wasn't at a babysitter's house. And on the weekends when I was with them and not at my dad's down in Fresno, I was out there in the yard on the acreage playing with my figures. The Star Wars action figures were my first companions out there amongst the granite rocks, out there amongst the little Christmas trees that were sprouting up, which was like a perfect Endor for me when Return of the Jedi came out. And we were only there it seems like we were there for 10 years. We only lived on that property from like probably 1980 to 1984. something like that, a very short period of time, along with the experiences of living in the mountains just being isolated and interesting, and little me helping out with building fences and all those interesting experiences. My very precious memories of this place was that I would be out there playing with my action figures. And it was, like I said previously today, it was Forlom, Zuckuss, Boba Fett, and IG-88 for sure were with me every single time I was out there. They had gone on mountain adventures. They'd gone deep in the creeks with me. They had experienced the snow. Back then, up there, we would get snow and it would be pretty substantial. I don't think that happens as frequently now, which is a whole other issue. And the creeks would get really full. In fact, there was one area of the creek where I could have probably drowned. It was so deep. But I loved it. I would get in there and it would be cold, but I'd take my toys with me. The experience of growing up on this Christmas tree farm, it was, I don't remember, I think the last name of my stepfather is Cox. It was just called Cox Christmas Tree Farm up there in in Dunlap, which is right off the 180 if you're driving up to Kings Canyon or Sequoia National Forests. I went down there a good 10 years ago or so to check out the property, and many of the trees were left there of the last batch of Christmas trees. And so the people who lived there didn't continue to use it as a Christmas tree farm. They just sort of let them overgrow. And a lot of them had toppled over and died. It was very sort of a creepy area. The ones that had overgrown were huge. It was really interesting.
Clark Griswold was out there cutting one down.
Exactly. The other part of this was that they were mostly dead. They'd gotten big and then probably died of thirst. Every once in a while, you can kind of see it from one of the side roads up there, and I look over and those trees are still there. But we somehow got permission to walk through the old house, and it had really fallen apart. It was almost untouched from my childhood, which was really interesting. The people that moved in kept some of the decor from my mom and my stepfather's decoration choices. And going back to Star Wars, what I loved about being able to take those figures out into the quote-unquote wilderness, I wasn't influenced by subplots or stories that existed. Nobody had published any comic books at this point or novels that explain the backstories of these characters. So they were just bounty hunters. That's all that I knew about them. So they could literally do anything. They were good, they were bad, they had sensitive sides, they were vicious. Like the exciting backstories that I could create for them were there. They could live in the same universe as Skeletor and Merman, and I love that. Anybody listening to this ever grew up in a rural area, you know that there's this magical quality to the part of quote-unquote getting lost. Being out there by yourself, not being worried about in the city where potentially something dangerous could happen to you. You could just be out there and be by yourself for hours and play with these figures. And the fact that it was a Christmas tree farm really added to that. I could have all these different environments that these figures could exist in. Maybe that's why I didn't really appreciate the Book of Boba Fett series as much as I could have. I grew up in a situation, and Mark, you did too, in a lot of ways, where these characters could be ours. I was excited about the Book of Boba Fett when it was announced. I wanted to know what was going on according to other people for these characters and their stories. And because of my relationship to the bounty hunters, it just could never reach my level of expectation. They've been with me to as far back as I can remember. I've cultivated and curated stories for them in my head. I can't just say negative stuff about the Book of Boba Fett because I really enjoyed seeing Fat Bib Fortuna. That was really cool. It was the best part about it. But and I enjoyed seeing a Rancor monster in action. That place for me will always carry sentimental value. To be super transparent, it was a difficult time for a variety of reasons. As a kid, being able to sort of get out of the difficulty and go out and be alone with my toys was very special. I spent a lot of my 20s being resentful about being alone out there. And now that I'm in my late 40s, I realize how, in many ways, that was so beneficial for my creative self. And so I'm appreciative of having grown up on a Christmas tree farm through all the seasons for those few years, and for having my Star Wars action figures for me. That probably contributes to why the bounty hunters are still extremely valuable to me. That's my very personal location, the Cox Christmas Tree Farm up in Dunlap off of Highway 180. Maybe eventually I'll buy it and turn it into a Christmas tree farm again. But I don't think my wife is that interested in that.
There was a Christmas tree farm for, oh gosh, I'm not sure how many years, near my old house, which, ironically enough, is gone now because of the 180, just north of Belmont on Peach. There was a live Christmas tree farm, and we went there even after we moved out of that area. We would go and cut down trees. I want to say that even like Carlita and I, first couple of Christmases, we might have gone out there, because I remember going to Javier's afterward, which is in Sunnyside. And then one year we went and it was gone, and there was just a lot over by Javier's. Anyway, just kind of interesting that you mentioned the 180 there, and that's of course what runs through that part of of Peach now.
I remember as a kid, I had the Christmas Tree Farm radar. When anytime we'd be driving through the Fresno area or anywhere in the Central Valley, it's like, there's another Christmas tree farm. You know, is it bigger than ours? Is it smaller than ours? Have they planted their own trees? Like, so
well, there weren't very many live Christmas tree farms in town. It was mostly just like a Christmas story.
Haven't you got a big tree? Yeah. Hell, this ain't no tree.
There are a lot of those now, and then I think there's still one that exists off of 41 just outside of North Fresno. I think that one still plants and sells live trees from there. They're few and far between.
Now, so
yeah, exactly. Ours is fake too. It's like
we've had fake, and then we've gone back to live, and now we have fake again, and it's just a heck of a lot easier.
It sure is,
and possibly better for the environment. I don't know.
It's hard to tell. You know, is a plastic tree that lasts many, 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 many years better? I don't know.
It's interesting, your comments about their lack of backstory, and that comes up a lot in that Plastic Galaxy documentary, where the guys are like, it was great to have these figures that maybe had 2 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
Because they just became whatever you wanted them to be. They could hop in the land speeder with Luke, or with C-3PO, or with whoever. They can be good guys, they can be bad guys, they can be neither. Yeah. And that's it's all up to you. And that's the one great thing about their digging into those minor characters instead of just, which they did. They still repeated the main 4 multiple times. Luke, Leia, Han, and even Lando, in different outfits. It's nice to have those outlier figures to play with.
Oh, yeah. I can't fault Lucasfilm or Disney completely for wanting to give audiences more of those characters, because they know it's a cash grab. I mean, it's guaranteed an audience if they say, well, we're going to show you more. I think Walrus Man and his partners show up in Rogue One briefly.
Yeah, we just watched that last night.
They know what they're doing, and I can appreciate that. I almost appreciate the brief appearance of these characters more than I appreciate the lengthy background stories of these characters, or trying to justify characters' actions, that their choice of being a bounty hunter or whatever. Rather than complaining too much about some of the stuff, like baby Greedo-looking character in, what's the first one of the prequels again?
Phantom Menace?
Yeah, the Phantom Menace, a little baby Greedo walking around. Like, I can't even hang with that.
We'll come back to we'll get nitpicky at the end here, and people can tune out if they want to. Because there's a couple things that I want to mention. I have a good starting off point, because I've been thinking about this a lot, even before deciding to do this for this episode.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Empire Strikes Back comes out. I'm obsessed with Yoda. Have to have a figure. Whenever I think about this time, I think I spent that summer of 1980 hunting for Yoda. But it wasn't. It makes sense to me now when I was trying to nail it down, which was not easy to do, like when was Yoda released? I'm using all these sites that list the figures, that talk about what cards they came on, blah, blah, blah. And there's no exact dates given. There's no street date for any of these figures. And I kind of have to go with card back information. Empire Strikes Back comes out in 1980. As I mentioned, I'm 11, just turned 11. That's 5th grade. And I'm thinking, yeah, this makes sense. This story makes sense that I hunted for it then. And then I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. Because my clear memory is of biking to Arthur's Toys every day for one summer with my friend Scott Mitchell. The reason it doesn't make sense that I was doing that in 1980 is because I would have been doing that with my best friend, Ricky Wadsworth. But he moved to Utah at the end of our 6th grade year. So 1981. I'm thinking, no, that's too late because then I was 12 and I was already moving on. And that's a whole year after the movie came out. So as I'm looking at card backs and stuff and seeing when figures were released, I mentioned earlier that there were, I believe, 9 in that first wave of Empire Strikes Back characters. So a 30 back card. No, 31 back. So there were 10, I'm sorry. And I may get some of this stuff wrong. Anyway, Yoda was on a 32 back card. So basically by himself. The stuff that I saw online, a lot of it said 1980 as the release date for Yoda. A lot of it said 1981. You can't really go off of copyright information like on the figure itself because they're using the movie for one thing and or the production date. But again, we're talking about a whole year after the movie. I don't know how much time I spent looking for him, but I just remember that particular summer. Every day that summer of 1981, I rode my bike to Arthur's Toys to try and find Yoda.
Try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
I lived on Madison Avenue, which is 1 block south of Belmont, and I was like 2 short blocks west of Peach. My Arthur's Toys. Yep. You've talked about Arthur's. You snaked that from me early on. Mine was on Tellurian Chestnut, and I don't honestly remember going to any of the other ones, but this was super close to our house. It's about 1.25 miles from my house. Very easy to get to. Tulare is 1 block south of Belmont, 1 city block south of Belmont. So we rode our bikes or walked probably on occasion there. And it was a big store.
Yeah, it was.
When you talk about that one on Shields and Blackstone, and I know that building now, I'm like, this is like 2 or 3 times the size of that. And it's now an Asian supermarket. It's comparable if you think about like a good-sized grocery store. If you have a chain grocery store in your city, Vaughn's, Ralph's, Rayleigh's, Save Mart, it's that size. It was that size then. It had that tall, I don't know what you call it. It's not a facade, but a lot of buildings, mid-century buildings have that tall brick structure tower out front where they would have the name. That's still there. And so when you walked in to the right or south, I guess, of the front entrance were all the bikes. And I think on the outside was all the pool stuff, pool supplies, when you walk in, it's wrapped in a gate. Walk in, bikes and big wheels and all that big toy stuff. You're walking in, everything's to your right or to the south of the entrance, and you start hitting the toy shelves. I remember looking at Shogun Warriors there. I remember, even though I've never played a minute of Dungeons and Dragons in my life, I used to go look at the little pewter figures.
Oh, yeah.
And they had tons of them. I don't think I ever got any, but I would just look, and because I like Lord of the Rings, that
They're
movie,
cool, right?
Came out in 78, and never bought any, but I would always look at them. And then towards the back were like the remote control cars and trains and things like that. And I think most of the action figures were up towards the front. And I remember I'd walk a few aisles, 4 or 5 aisles down, and that was where the Star Wars stuff was. Walked there every day for a summer looking for that fucking Yoda figure. And very well could have been a whole year. Probably looked at the Toys R Us in the mall for it. The one bad thing about Fresno is we never get anything first. So even if it was out in big cities like LA and San Francisco and New York and Chicago and all that, we wouldn't have had it until shipments finally make it to Fresno. I don't recall when I finally picked it up, but I do have the memory of going in finally one time and seeing him and getting him. And to this day, still have him. And like you said, he's got a lot of accoutrement. He's got a cloth cape. He's got a little orange or brown snake, depending on which version you have. A cane and his little utility belt with his miniature lifesaver, his little snack pack, and whatever else is supposed to be on there. I lost the cane at some point, so this is a reproduction cane. Again, it's like I barely played with this thing. It's like I just had it to adore it, or like, I mean, he's got a few rubs on his feet, but his head is in perfect condition. His cape and snake and everything else that would normally break from kids playing with are all still there. Probably because I was 12 and already starting to move on from this stuff. I never had any figures from Return of the Jedi as a kid. When that movie came out, I was 14. I saw it and
you had
liked
other
it,
interests.
but I was way beyond. I don't even remember seeing them, and probably wasn't even going to toy stores. I didn't get any Return of the Jedi or Power of the Force or anything else that came after that.
Oh, Return of the Jedi is a whole other conversation for me.
I love Return of the Jedi. The Ewoks never bothered me.
They never bothered me either.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a fun story. I love all the stuff on Endor and totally fine with it. Maybe not so fine with the Luke Leia brother-sister thing, but whatever. We'll get into some of that.
That's a whole other story too. Take a moment and talk about your relationship to Yoda's face before I start going off on a tangent about it.
Well, I mean, that was one of the best parts of that Muppet. Was his face. When I watched the prequels, I'm like, this ain't it, man. I need that guy. I need that squishy, wrinkly, goofy-looking, dead-eyed puppet.
Absolutely.
With his little butt sticking up in the air when he's digging in Luke's stuff.
It's perfect. It's perfection. And the toy, though it's not a exact replica of what we see in the movie, the toy is special too. The toy face is special too.
It's pretty damn close, though.
It's real close.
It's pretty damn close.
Cute little smile, and he's amazing.
He's way too serious in the prequels too. For another thing,
Oh, yeah,
none of
absolutely.
that goofy charm of Empire, and his little appearance in Return of the Jedi is completely missing.
They give him a little goofy charm when he shows up in the newer movies and confronts Luke as a spirit.
Force ghost.
As a Force ghost. I'm glad that I have complaints about those movies too, but I'm glad that they tried to bring back some of that Frank Oz charm that they just totally eliminated from the prequels.
I mean, they're all too serious anyway. Just to round things out here, I did, probably because of that Plastic Galaxy thing, or maybe that's why I got that movie, but I did briefly delve back into Star Wars territory like 10 years ago, was on a couple message boards, and I think part of it was inspired by trying to get some reproduction blasters and stuff. Like, I know my Jawas, I lost some of those, and his cane and things like that, and then I started looking at the figures that I never had, and particularly the Cantina creatures, some of the bounty hunters. I never got Luke, Leia, or Darth Vader from that original 12, but I did end up getting a number of that second wave of Star Wars, A New Hope figures. So I have now Hammerhead, Walrus Man, Bosk, Zuckuss. Oh, these are Empire Strikes Back. Forlom, IG-88, and Boba Fett. 10 years ago, these were all easy pickups and relatively cheap. My Zuckuss is mint. I don't know if I got him on a card. I know I got Prune Face on a card. Just a banged up beater card with a destroyed blister, but still, the figure was mint. I was looking through this stuff with Cleo, and I'm like, man, this Zuckuss is just like pristine.
That's a difficult one to find pristine because
he's got a lot of stuff going on too.
Exactly.
That chest thing, the pleather cape is just perfect. I did finally pick up some Revenge of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi figures. Admiral Akbar, Endor, Leia. I got that for Cleo. Prune Face, who I always thought was interesting, and a Force Anakin. Force Ghost Anakin.
I gotta get one of
for
those.
The heck of it.
Well, for the heck of it, that's amazing. I got to get one of those Force Ghost Anakins. That has significance for a variety of reasons. The fact that Lucas edited him out of the end scene of Return of the Jedi and put in Hayden Christensen.
I hate that.
Really,
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. For one thing, he wouldn't know him as that. Luke or Leia would have no.
Exactly. No, it makes zero sense, George.
My jumping off thing here and this is where people, if you're not interested, might want to shut us off. I think often, what would it be like if those original 3 movies, the original trilogy, was all we had gotten?
Yeah.
That was it. I kind of wish that were true sometimes. Part of that was inspired by watching that documentary where they had to keep interest in the property to keep selling figures, because when there were no movies, they weren't selling toys. And the people from Kenner that are on that documentary, and there are a lot of Kenner people on there, are like, what do you do? And they did stuff. They introduced like vehicle sets that could coincide with the films that weren't in the movies. I don't think they went as far as introducing characters that weren't in the movies, but it gets into that realm. And then, of course, you get the last 17 figures, which most people hate. I think there are some interesting figures in there, but they are kind of odd. And you get Power of the Force 2, years later, which are just hideous, disgusting figures, and some other
beefcake Luke.
Yeah, the like V, the V-shaped figures hold no interest.
Horrible.
And then there's 83 to 99, however many years gap that is between new stuff. Of course, you get a couple years prior to that, you get the re-release, the special editions, which we can talk about too. See, that's where I think none of this stuff was all that important to me. I went and saw the special edition of A New Hope when it came out. Me and Jeff, I don't think you were there. Were you in London at the time?
I was. It was 97. I saw A New Hope special edition in London.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I'm like, there's no Ronnie here, but we were in the paper. Cold.
That's right.
I think it was December.
Yep.
First in line type of thing. And I was like, Again, I don't need to see a stormtrooper falling off a dewback.
I mean,
the dewback in the background of the original is perfectly fine. Greedo shooting first, bullshit, whatever.
I mean, really, it's not okay what happened in the special editions. It's not okay for a variety of reasons. Number one, that first rendition of computer animation in the special editions was just horrible. It's gotten better over the years.
It's still pretty bad, though.
It's still really bad. The musical sequence in Return of the Jedi and Jabba's palace is absolutely horrendous. The silliness of the goings-on in the background in A New Hope is just embarrassing. Jabba's appearance is absolutely unnecessary. Han Solo's broken neck to avoid Greedo's laser blast, absolutely disgusting. But this is where I'm going to get really opinionated. That's not the worst of it. The worst of it is this. If you make something for the world, you don't take away previous versions of it. George Lucas eliminating the original versions from the consumer aspect of our culture, in other words, we can't buy it anywhere, is absolutely unfair and actually unrealistic in the realm of any of the arts. Let's talk about publishing, for example. If there's a first edition of a book, it still exists out there, folks. You can still find it. It might be more difficult to find, but you can still find it. And George Lucas taking those away, you can still find those versions on VHS out there or on Laserdisc out there, but they're near impossible to find at this stage. And there are people who have released them online and been shut down. I just don't think that's fair. I know George Lucas will never hear this, and I'm sure his friends have mentioned this, but if his pal Steven Spielberg can do that with E.T., release the altered versions along with the original versions so that you can have both to look at, right, side by side, then why couldn't George Lucas do that for this franchise? It's just not fair.
Yeah, this is interesting because this actually came up before, and when we were talking about W.C. Fields and all that stuff on episode 7, and you made the comment that artists have the right to edit their creations. And I said basically the opposite. My argument was that once it's out there, it belongs to the people. As I was editing the show, I was like, you don't actually believe that though, Mark. So I took it out. And unfortunately, I don't have the raw footage from that because I would insert it here.
Yeah.
I did say that, but I don't believe it. I think you even brought up, which also isn't in the episode, but you brought up publishing and stuff and first editions. And I think of Bukowski when I think of that because of the novel Women, where his editor made some changes and he was like, change it back. So there was a second edition. You could probably still find some first editions out there for a great load of money. And then I don't know if I looked this up because of that or if I just happened to see it online. Someone had posted George Lucas commenting about this, where people say, it's not yours anymore, it's ours. You released it. And he was like, no. And I'm going to agree with him here. He's like, no, it is mine. You are just renting it.
I can see that.
Whatever version it is, whether you've bought it physically on Blu-ray, he's like, you are paying to watch it for a while. These are my things. And I kind of agree with that. As much as I dislike most of the changes, I do have to kind of agree with him. I would still like to be able to watch the unaltered versions.
Yes.
Because so many of the changes are, for one thing, they don't look good. Altering the story does bother me. Who cares if Han shot first? He's a scumbag. And he's trying to erase that scumbagginess of him.
That's part of his character development.
Right. He's got to have an arc.
Yeah.
And without being... I don't even know why people would consider that scumbaggy when you shoot a bounty hunter who's trying to take you in.
Yes, yeah.
In a lawless land. I don't understand why that's an issue. But anyway, movies get edited, and we're in this world of where now when a movie comes out, it's like everybody wants the director's cut immediately, and it's like, well, isn't this the director's cut?
Yeah,
the movie comes out and it is what it is, right? And so he's sort of playing with that even more by constantly making changes, and I don't even know which version I'm watching anymore.
I watched a short little thing on YouTube that tracked all the changes, and so there have been so many changes to the changes that what we're seeing on Disney Plus now is quite a bit different from what we saw in the theaters when those special editions came out. I need to say this. The artist has every right to change what they do. It does belong to them first and foremost. They made it. They've spent the time to create it. They have every right to make an adjustment. What does actually belong to the audience, though, is what the artist is willing to share. That could be at any stage of the version of a thing, just like with the Bukowski book, just like with E.T., for example. The artist needs to know that there's no real way to take back what you've already given the world. You can try. There are people out there who know how to share the original version to us. They will continue to do that of the Star Wars movies. George Lucas is kind of right, but also is forgetting how little control he actually has over this massive IP that has been around for so long that the fan base actually carries a kind of ownership of it. They've become attached.
That's where a lot of problems come up, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's where you get very toxic fanboys.
We're doing a version of it by talking about it, but fans also need to be able to let go. They also need to be able to be accepting and let go a little bit.
Well, and here's my main takeaway from any art or commerce. You got the thing you paid for.
Yeah.
When you went to see the movie, paid a ticket price, you went and you watched the movie. That's where the transaction ends. The director, the studio, the producers, the actors, they don't owe you anything else.
That's so true.
Other than that experience that you had in the movie theater, other than the experience you had sitting on your couch watching a TV show, other than purchasing a toy and taking it home and putting it on your shelf or playing with, that's it. The transaction's over. They don't owe us anything. George Lucas doesn't owe us anything. Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, nobody owes anybody anything other than what you got for the price of admission. Now, if you go to a movie theater and you don't like the movie, you're more than welcome to walk out and ask for your money back. If you buy a toy, you take it home, and it breaks the second you open it, you could probably go and return it to the store. Again, that's it, though. He doesn't owe us an explanation. He really doesn't owe us the originals. I'd like to be able to watch them. My brother-in-law has had the VHS versions for years, and I have them here at my house, and I have a VCR. I could put them on. I don't like watching stuff that's been formatted for TV. So by default, I'll watch what's on Disney Plus. I am sure I could, with a little bit of effort, I could track down those Laserdisc versions that have been reformatted and put out there. I'm sure I could contact a few people and track them down, which I may do at some point. But I sort of side with him on this. Is like, yeah, it's not really yours. You can watch what I give you. And if you don't like that, oh well.
There's a good argument on both sides. What makes it complicated is that no matter what we do, if we're going to make something and put it out into the world, it becomes a relationship. The kind of relationship it becomes is up to those involved. And how we treat the relationship is up to us. George Lucas has a kind of relationship with us, and not everyone's going to agree with that kind of relationship. I have complicated feelings about it as an artist myself. I agree with you in that he has every right to do whatever he wants with this, and now Disney owns the stuff, so they have every right to do whatever they want with it. It can't be ignored that the engagement with the public is the developing of a relationship. And I admire an artist that understands that relationship should go back and forth. It should be reciprocal, and it shouldn't be, you don't like it, too bad. Those kind of relationships don't necessarily work very well. I see what you're saying, and I also understand George Lucas's perspective, but I also know that it's more complicated than that. We got to think about editing and adjusting what is consumed by our audience is absolutely normal and needs to happen. But also listening to the audience every once in a while is good too. I think Disney does that with the Star Wars stuff, in that they've got fanboys making Star Wars stuff now. Jon Favreau and the other guy who does the...
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni, yeah. I mean, they're fanboys, so they're trying in their own way to cultivate that relationship a little bit more. And I appreciate that. I also ask myself, how necessary is it for us to...
Well... Yeah. And listening to audiences hasn't really served them all that well either, because that sequel trilogy is born of that, where we didn't like the stuff in that one, so we're gonna retcon everything in the next one, and then we're gonna retcon all that stuff in the last one. So as I mentioned, we've been going through these, and next up would be the sequel trilogy, and Cleo doesn't have any interest in watching it. She's like, I don't like those ones. And I'm like, really? We watched Solo the other night, and we watched Rogue One last night, and that might be the end of it. I hadn't seen Revenge of the Sith in full until we watched it this past week. Carlita and I went and saw Phantom Menace. We might have seen Attack of the Clones in the theater. I know we saw it, but it might have been when it came out on video or DVD. I don't really remember, because again, I don't care enough.
Yeah.
And Revenge of the Sith, the only thing I remember about Revenge of the Sith is David Letterman constantly calling it Revenge of the Blith on late night. That's all I know about. And hopefully I can find a clip of that, and I'm not making it up, but he said it like every episode for months when that movie came out.
Sadly, Mark could not find a clip of Letterman saying Revenge of the Blith.
And as far as the Disney stuff, you asked, I think, I don't know, way back when, if I anticipated any Marvel stuff, and I'll give you the same answer. I don't anticipate any of the Star Wars. Like, I don't care. It's so glutted. It's just like too much stuff. We've watched most of them, and I enjoy them to a certain degree, but like, they could stop now and I'd be perfectly fine. We've stopped and started Andor twice now.
Oh my gosh, us too.
One thing I like about it is they're actually using real locations for this one, but I'm just like, I don't care about this guy. He dies anyway. What the fuck do I care about his backstory?
It's just
I watched him die last night in Rogue One.
Ahsoka as well. Like, I just don't have an attachment. It's not there for me,
And see, Cleo does, because she's watched the Clone Wars.
It'll be interesting to know what she thinks of the Ahsoka series, because I haven't watched it. I've only watched the first and second episodes, but
I think we all liked it okay.
I didn't continue, and I've seen some reviews of like how it ends and stuff, and I'm like, yeesh. How does that align for people who are fans of the Clone Wars? Does it work or does it not work?
I don't recall her being like overjoyed with it. We finished that one, and it's fine. Like, I don't have any connection with those characters at all. Yeah. I want a Chopper retro collection figure, and that's about all I can say about that.
Chopper's cute.
Series. Book of Boba Fett, whatever. We've been sticking with Mandalorian, but past that first season, I don't know. It hasn't really held that much appeal. I like it when the Jawas show up. I like little Grogu, and whatever. Show me the baby.
I would like to see the baby.
The Rancor in Book of Boba Fett was a lot of fun to see, and I love that he was kind of like a big dog. That was sweet. This stuff is hit and miss, and I think it's always going to be hit and miss. We haven't watched Ghostbusters Afterlife, but we have it here. I just red boxed it yesterday. We're going to try and watch it, and I've been hesitant to watch it because I have an attachment to Ghostbusters, the original movie, and every time we re-enter these territories, it's a little scary for us, and we'll see.
I don't have a problem with people exploring these old IPs. I'm not like, oh, the Star Wars people, you raped my childhood. It's like, it's a fucking movie. Who cares?
Yeah, those people who get
with it what you want.
The people who get that incensed over trying to bring new blood into an old thing, to me, we have every right to re-envision a franchise. Whether it works or not is a whole other story, and we have every right to not like something too. But the people who go online and they complain and complain and complain in brutal ways, without an ability to see both sides of the story or see the perspectives that are involved, that's just embarrassing. And as a fanboy of multiple things, I feel that sense of embarrassment when I see it happening. I'm not going to say I don't have opinions about these things, because I definitely do. Personally, if I were to not be able to see both sides of the story or both perspectives or all the perspectives and respect those perspectives, then I'd be just like all those other folks. It's really too bad. What always lasts is the reasons why we fell in love with this stuff in the first place. All those folks out there that are frustrated, I just say, remember why you liked it in the first place. Fall back on that. That's a comforter that will never go away. It's always going to be okay as long as you can just remember why you fell in love with it in the first place.
Yeah, nothing new should take away from your enjoyment of the original thing. It's just not important enough to give that much energy to. None of this stuff is that important. Except for my little baby Yoda.
When I got the retro collection version of that, I was so happy, because even though it's a newer version of it, it's still, I feel like they're using the same molds, the same material for the little cloak. And I just love the Yoda action figure brings a tactile joy. I think that's unanimous for anybody that's held it in their hands.
Well, I can say easily my favorite Star Wars figures are Greedo, the Jawas, Yoda, and to a slightly lesser extent, C-3PO and R2-D2. Now, my R2-D2 actually is pretty worn, because I think every time I pick it up by the front.
Oh, yeah.
His sticker is very, very worn. Like, his chrome is in good shape. My C-3PO, although he's really floppy, the chrome is, like, pristine.
Yeah,
his little bolt in the back is rusty, but again, it's like, I just don't think I played with them all that much.
Yeah. C-3PO and R2-D2 are... I'm very lucky to have a R2-D2 that's in pretty good shape that I found online for not a bad price compared to what they're going for now, but definitely
stuff is going for ridiculous prices now.
I know. I got R2 for a really good price on eBay, and especially since he's in such good condition, but he was definitely on my list of figures that I needed to have from the vintage line. I have a C-3PO, and he's very loose too, but his vac metal is in good shape. But the bounty hunters, it's like, they are, to me, some of the greatest achievements out of all the action figures made in the history of action figures. They're just gorgeous. One that I'm going to talk about eventually on Weekly Weirdo, and he'll definitely come up when we talk about Return of the Jedi eventually, but that little Wicket Ewok action figure is absolutely phenomenal. He activates the same tactile thing in me with the Yoda action figure. He's so cute. He looks very similar to the character in the movie. It's just little arms and little legs. I mean, it's adorable.
Yeah, they had their stuff together by then. They actually released the figures before the movie came out and had all the, they were working with Lucasfilm and 20th Century Fox to design all that stuff by then. So they definitely get more detailed by then, but detail isn't really the deal for me. It's more the charm of those simple figures. So anywho, I don't remember our outro, and I forgot to write it down, so why don't you take us out?
I have it written down somewhere too, but I don't have it in front of me.
Well, here's what I'll do. I will cut and paste from an earlier episode.
There you go.
And just as a note, we are going to be doing something special for our next episode. It will actually come out a week early, so there will be no January episode, which would have been our anniversary episode, but we can discuss that on the next one. We're going to release a special holiday episode the day after Christmas. We will be looking back at past episodes and talking about anything that we have picked up that we discussed on those. So look for that on December 26th. And until then, here's that outro that I came up with a couple episodes back. And it'll just be from that episode. So it'll sound exactly the same. Have fun, stay weird, and keep collecting.
Bye!
There's nothing to
little music can't help. Rockin', rockin' and rollin'. Down to the beach I'm strolling. But the seagulls poke at my head, not fun. I said, seagulls, stop it now. Everyone told me not to stroll on that beach. Said seagulls gonna come, poke me in the coconut, and they did, and they did, had me going like, nothing I could do but yell when these birds attacked me. When I tried to run, I fell, and then these kids started laughing. And then got hit in the neck with a hacky sack. Where'd it come from? Now run, 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 jump. I can be a backpack while you run. Run, 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 jump, and stop. Put me down. I love to groove and boogie. Yeah.
Great.
Show you some dance moves.
No, I don't want you to.
If I had your giant feet out there on the beach, could have outrun those birds.
You're a psycho wiener.
Let me grab my beater.
Stop it, please. Don't hit me. Please. Don't hit me.
Come on, man, quit that banging.
Hey, what's that stank?
You put a fish in our basket.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I did that.
You owe me an apology.
Just hold your breath and see when the time is right. Birds will back your face. Now run, 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 jump. I can be a backpack while you run. Swing from a hairy vine. I can be a backpack while you climb. Stand on one hand and lift rocks with your special gift. Run, 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 jump. Now breathe. That's good. Like that. Like that. One day I was walking and I found this big log. Then I rolled the log over, and underneath was a tiny little stick. And I was like, that log had a child. Listen, boy, someday when you are older, you could get hit by a boulder. While you're lying there screaming, come help me, please. The seagulls poke your knees. Stop it now.
Yeah, whatever, you're sort of pitchy.
Didn't like it?
Listen, man, I'm not your friend.
Don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Stop it now.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way Media podcast.